Right, in 2016, when a teenage girl staged a protest against a Pretoria girls' high school over their policy on black hair, that brave girl was Zulaikha Patel. 5 years later, she has launched an exciting new book. I've got it in my hand right now. Very lovely, My Coily Hair by Zulaikha Patel. Love the imagery, the cartoon, everything about this book, Zulaikha. Let's talk about this. I mean, for you, I imagine this started, did it start when you were in high school or not?
Morning, thank you for having me. This book actually, the idea of writing a book started a very long time before, way before. It started in my childhood because I started reading at the age of 4. So I was a very early reader.
Yeah.
And when I'd already got to primary school, I was already a fluent reader. Like I already had a strength in reading. And what I realized was there was a gap in representation, in children's literature. What I noticed was that the books that we were taught to read with did not necessarily reflect our reality. And because of that, I wanted to, at some point in time, bring representation to the table that would reflect my reality and the reality of many other Black African children. And so that's where it properly started. And then in writing the book, I started writing the book when I was in grade 11 in 2019.
You know, everything you're saying is absolutely true. So I've got a 2-year-old. I'm also trying to get her into writing, right? Of the 5 African literature books that we've got for her, there are 20 others with other characters on the covers, and you know, like there are 5 books with African characters, African kids that she can see on the books, compared to like 20 other titles that celebrate all the other cultures and other races, etc. I imagine then this is an important book, but for you, I mean, the hair conversation is still very much a thing for you. Where is it now?
You know, I actually want to refrain from terming it a hair conversation, because it's not a hair conversation, it's a race conversation. It's a conversation around systemic and institutionalized racism related to the history of this country, the very recent history of this country, which continues to affect our present, because the present is determined by the past and the future is determined by the present. And so I specifically say that I shy away from terming it a hair conversation, because hair is but a microcosm of a larger issue at hand. It's a symptom of a deeper diagnosis, and that diagnosis is systemic racism in our country. And where we're at as a country, I think that we're at a point whereby young people have done a lot in terms of their activism, in terms of bringing the issue to the table. I think we're at a point now where it requires serious government intervention in collaboration with young people to work towards forming policies, because right now, currently, we've spent an entire month celebrating African heritage, celebrating the beauty and the richness of our continent. However, what do those celebrations truly mean when institutions sanctioned by the state, institutions of employment, institutions of education do not reflect the celebrations that we're having? That isn't the reality in those institutions, whereas then we know that in institutions we're at war with our identity, our entire existence, because it's deeper than just hair. It's not just hair, it's agency, it's existence. It's deeper than that. It's how you show up, your entire existence, you know? And so we're at a point whereby it requires government intervention to create policies and legislation that prohibit the discrimination against hair, because if we're a country that comes out of a deeply racist past, which has continued to shape and define our present, we must head in a future whereby we're still working towards ensuring that racism doesn't continue into our future. And that requires a continuous hard work on the Constitution, on legislature, on policy, radical policy transformation. And that can only be done with government intervention and equally with the collaboration of young people.
And are you carrying these messages in your book? I mean, I'm just paging through here and I'm seeing here, it says, Mama helps Zulaikha to take good care of her hair. She uses coconut shampoo to wash Zulaikha's hair and rinses it off with lukewarm water. Beautiful artwork as well.
You know, with the artwork was very important that it would stand out and it would reflect our true beauty as Black people. Because I feel far too many times when we see representation, we don't see representation that actually represents what and who we truly are, and actually represents our beauty as a people. And I've many times seen representation which didn't necessarily reflect how beautiful we are as a people.
I like that. My Coily Hair. Let's talk about the title of the book, Zulaikha. What are you saying? I mean, this sounds like a statement, but as you've just said, like, it goes beyond the conversation. There's activism, there's policy that needs to take place. There are, you know, legislation, there's legislative, you know, things that need to be implemented in order for us to get to where we need to, right? So it's a bigger race conversation, but there's an even bigger picture of galvanizing government and the people to all speak in one voice. I imagine this title on its own says quite a lot, but I want to hear it from you.
You know, the title actually is very closely tied to teaching young Black girls to claim agency over their entire existence.
Okay.
Because far too many times as Black girls we're not taught to claim our existence and take agency over it. And so it was important that the title started with my, so that when a child would say the title and recite the title, they would understand, and they would understand that they're not just reciting a title, but they're affirming agency over their existence.
That is powerful. What has been the reaction from the parents of these African children who now have this book at home?
I think the reaction has been one that's very heartwarming, very beautiful reaction. I think parents are starting to have conversations around hair with their children, and it's sparking a very important revolution of self-care, self-love, and having those conversations in Black households, you know?
I mean, what would you tell a 4-year-old Zulaikha right now? Who started off just reading and becoming an avid reader. Now you are holding, you know, power through this book.
I would just say we did it. Here we are. We did it.
Love it, man. I love it, love it, love it. Listen, and just quickly wrapping up, I mean, Abu Basitana Kumalo, Yvonne Chaka Chaka, all these amazing people are endorsing your book, right? And just your brand. How does that make you feel?
It's out of this world, because these are people that I've looked up to my entire life. These are people that I have admired. These are icons that have inspired me and have paved the way for me. And I think it just shows that their work was never in vain, and they paved the way for my generation to walk in the path that they've paved.
I love that. Listen, we're going to be absolutely watching everything that you are doing. My Coily Crowny Hair, man, a book there by Zulaikha Patel, joining us here on The Morning Show on a motivational Monday. Hopefully this conversation and everything that this young lady had to say has inspired you to do something about your life.
My